I have been to Ireland several times, both the Republic and Province, but have often felt that Northern Ireland, sometimes referred to as Ulster, is scenically undervalued by photographers in Britain. I was even told by one who had never been there before that there wasn't much to see. Hadn't they heard of the Giant's Causeway? But there is more to see in Northern Ireland than the Giant's Causeway, which brings to the fore the importance of research and creating a plan before you leave home, when you quickly discover that a week is not going to be long enough. The Ordnance Survey of Northern Ireland covered the entire province with 1 to 50,000 Discoverer series maps, and selected areas such as the Glens of Antrim and Causeway Coast with larger scale activity maps, ideal for walkers as the right to roam does not exist in Northern Ireland. I discovered 2 outdoor guidebooks published by Knife Edge covering Northern Ireland and the Mourne Mountains. I found them excellent. They can probably be purchased in advance at Stanford's in London or Bristol and from Amazon. I also found the information centres first rate for picking up additional free literature not handily available in mainland Britain. Living near Gatwick Airport, I had a choice of flights to Belfast International Airport and Belfast City, and I booked early for the cheapest fares. There are also flights from London Heathrow and Manchester, amongst other cities. I went EasyJet and paid the supplement for a reserved window seat. City Airport, not far from the Titanic Quarter, is best for Belfast, as International is several miles away near Lough Neagh, possibly better for Derry and Giant's Causeway using a hired car. There are regular bus services from both airports into the city centre, but I couldn't find any convenient flights to Derry, which is several miles from its city centre. For over 40 years, I have travelled around the UK by public transport. I used to drive, incidentally. But when you go by public transport, then, of course, you don't take the kitchen sink. I only take what is absolutely necessary so that it can fit into this rucksack. Now, when on a plane, of course, this can sit underneath my seat at no extra charge. Also, when I get to Belfast City Airport, for example, then I don't have to wait for my baggage to come out of the hold, and as I'm travelling within the UK, then I just simply walk out of the airport. Though back at Gatwick, of course, I have to go through security. The other advantage of this when travelling, you might be between accommodation or going to accommodation or coming back from accommodation, then with a rucksack like this, it can easily slip onto your back and take photographs. It doesn't get in the way. The other thing I should mention that when I'm in airports and railway stations waiting at the bus stop, then I keep the cameras out of view. If I want to take a picture, then of course that is where the smartphone comes in very handy indeed. Public transport in Northern Ireland was better than expected. Buses and trains appear to be new, and Grand Central Station in Belfast is nearing completion. And Grand does not only apply to its name. It's taking over from Great Victoria Street Station, and when I visited in September, it was partially open. Before I leave home, I do extensive research, plan itineraries, allowing for bad weather. Also, I keep my camera kit down to a minimum suitable for landscapes and architecture. And here on the table is what I used. My workhorse was this wonderful little camera. It's the OM5 with the 12 to 45 Pro lens, f4 constant aperture. I use this most of the time. Yes, I took a backup, and that was my earlier EM1 Mark II, but I took with me the 14 to 150 zoom, which gives me a little bit more flexibility regarding zoom ratio. Now, all of this will fit in rather snugly into the rucksack which you saw earlier, even room for my toothbrush and a few shirts, incidentally. And I travel around like that. In fact, if you were to see me at Gatwick Airport, or indeed Belfast, or a railway station in Belfast itself, you wouldn't know that I was a photographer. The 3 tours I undertook in 2024 were an overnight in Belfast, a week at the Causeway Coast, and 4 nights at Newcastle, County Down. From Belfast I stayed at Carrickfergus in a Premier Inn, but for the Causeway Coast I tried a B&B in Bushmills and another in Newcastle. Both exceeded my expectations, booked incidentally through booking.com at around £80 per night. That included an ensuite room with a cooked breakfast, which was a treat, as I don't have one at home. I pre-booked all 3 tours to get the best prices and to guarantee accommodation. I was therefore at the mercy of weather and other factors beyond my control. Arriving at Belfast, it was lovely and sunny, but rain had been forecast overnight, but it cleared in the morning. My plans for sunset and sunrise shots at Carrickfergus never materialized, but the clouds duly parted shortly after breakfast, allowing some atmospheric shots of the castle. By the time I got to Titanic Quarter, the weather now was perfect. This was originally scheduled for the previous day, but as rain, as we have seen, was forecast, I photographed instead the interior of City Hall. Before going to Carrickfergus for overnight accommodation, I took the bus to Cave Hill for the big view, but by now cloud had increased, making my shots uncommercial, which was not what I wanted. My second visit in June was to Bushmills, a mile from the Giant's Causeway. From Belfast City Airport, I took the train to Coleraine, then bus to Bushmills, where my host picked me up, who was generous with extra transport. Afterwards, he took me to the Giant's Causeway that day, where I spent a couple of hours before walking back. Early morning and late evening are the best times to visit the Giant's Causeway, as it is often infiltrated by coach parties from Belfast. It is free to enter on foot, but there is a charge for car parking, which incidentally is free for National Trust members. There is a bus service from Bushmills during the day, and a heritage train service. I keep the camera on program mode, which incidentally is not the same as auto. I adjust white balance and exposure compensation as and when necessary. Shutter speeds and apertures in program can still be changed without resorting to the dedicated modes, and it is usually quicker this way. I spot meter with the electronic finder, and as I save to RAW, I adjust and correct camera settings in Adobe Lightroom. Now, should I say this process is peculiar, yes, peculiar to me, but I have been doing it for years. I work at speed, much done subconsciously, and I don't faff about. It works for me, but it requires experience, so don't expect instant gratification. My sudden dash, upon arrival, helped by my host to the Giant's Causeway, was because rain was heading my way. It probably reached County Donegal already, because the next day was wet, so I checked my plans by visiting the information centre in town, just as well as I nearly lost out on Rathlin Island, as the ferry had to be pre-booked. Nevertheless, for now, I basked in the evening light and achieved some decent shots, courtesy of being in the right place at the right time. I went to Derry, or Londonderry if you prefer, and I went by train. I could have stayed longer. Walking the ancient city walls was a fascinating experience. Now, I'm often asked how I succeed in getting shots without people. Not always lucky, but as they seem to come in groups, I wait and then act quickly and spontaneously before the next group appears. Travelling light and benefiting from today's technology is an advantage. I am able to slip into the cathedral and take some handheld shots in low light, as the OM5 has an incredible image stabilizer. Same technique here regarding the absence of people. Because of the wet day, I had to combine 2 trips in the same day, walking a total of 18 miles. Well, that's what my iPhone told me. I did achieve many excellent shots and experienced a variety of weather patterns and experienced a shower or 2. I was a little concerned about the rainbow because in medieval times it was believed that if you pass underneath to the other side, you then change sex. Now that's what I call a near miss. Seeking an exciting conclusion for this second program, I opted for the Carrick-a-Rede rope bridge, not for the faint-hearted, but I said a prayer in the local church first. I wanted a video without people, not an easy task, so I played Tail End Charlie. I had noted the closing time, so I duly turned up just before closure. It is manned by stewards, but as they were anxious to get home, I reassured them that I just wanted to cross the bridge without staying on the island. I held onto the rope with my left hand, the other, of course, holding the camera. This is one occasion you can accuse me of camera shake, and I wasn't even looking through the viewfinder or looking at the screen. It was point and shoot gone mad. As my return trip from Belfast wasn't until the evening, I visited Bangor and relived my previous day's adventure on the big wheel, but this time seated. My tour to Newcastle, the third one, exposed my shortcomings. I have climbed Scawfell Pike, Snowdon, and Ben Nevis, but not Slieve Donard, which is the highest mountain in Northern Ireland. I am, of course, blaming the weather, but honestly, I am past it. I can still walk 15 miles or more on easy terrain, such as a beach, but exposed rock on a mountain path now presents problems of balance. I settled for the lower slopes of Tollymore Forest, not without purpose, because it was a location used in Game of Thrones. I console myself today that at 80 I can still walk twice as far than many others half my age. Weather did affect the itinerary on this occasion. Commercially, I need sun, but cloud is perfect for interiors as it reduces contrast. Plan B featured a trip to Castle Ward, a National Trust property overlooking Strangford Lough, a location scheduled for next year, so I decided on a preview, as it was easy to reach by bus. It is subjects like stately home interiors where Olympus and OM system cameras come into their own. Tripods and flash are not permitted inside Castle Ward, so I have to handhold, relying on the image stabilizer in the OM5 and the extra depth of field even at f4 you get with Micro Four Thirds. So, no more waffle from me. Let my pictures take center stage, and I will show the shutter speeds, but you'll just have to believe me, take my word for the fact that I was hand holding. What you've been looking at cover my 3 tours in 2024, and I'm recording this in October of that year, and I've already made plans for next year, April, when I hope to visit the Glens of Antrim. In fact, I've booked my accommodation already for the cheaper prices. One of the places I am anxious to visit is called the Gobbins. Not perhaps an attractive name in itself that would encourage a visit, but then if you pick up the leaflet and look at the photographs, I don't know whether you can see that conveniently, but that is part of the Gobbins Trail, which is a guided walk. And quite frankly, I can't wait